The episode begins in a dark, atmospheric London bar. Clara Bennett sits alone in a corner booth, her trench coat draped over the seat beside her. A glass of double whiskey on ice rests in her hand, the amber liquid catching the dim light. She gazes out the rain-streaked window, her expression unamused, yet deeply troubled. The muffled sounds of chatter and clinking glasses fill the air, but Clara seems detached, lost in thought. A bartender glances at her, sensing she's not the type to engage in small talk. Clara's phone buzzes on the table, breaking her reverie. She sighs, picks it up and answers. "Ellie, this better be important." Ellie's voice is sharp and urgent. It is. There's been a murder in Bloomsbury, an old townhouse. The victim's some rare book dealer named Arthur Winslow. Clara straightens slightly. A book dealer, and why are we interested? Because the scene's strange. He's holding a playing card in his hand, Queen of Spades. And there's something written on a scrap of paper we found nearby. Latin, I think. You'll want to see it for yourself. Clara frowns, a flicker of curiosity breaking through her otherwise impassive demeanour. Latin? Anything else? A witness? Young guy? An artist? Says he saw someone fleeing the scene and heard them muttering something about a raven. At the mention of raven, Clara's grip tightens on the phone. Her voice hardens. What did he say exactly? Just that. The raven sends his regards. Does it mean anything to you? Clara's pause stretches a moment too long. No, she lies smoothly. Text me the address. I'll be there in 20. Got it. And Clara, bring your A game. This one feels different. Clara ends the call, downs the remainder of her whiskey and grabs her coat. As she steps into the rainy London night, her mind is already working through the threads of this peculiar case, though one thought lingers above all. The raven is back. The rain is relentless as Clara steps out of her car and onto the slick cobblestone street of Bloomsbury. The townhouse looms ahead, its windows dark and foreboding. A single street lamp casts a dim glow on the scene, illuminating the police tape fluttering in the wind. Clara pulls her coat tighter around her as she walks toward the house, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. The cracked paint on the doorframe, the faint scent of damp earth in the air, the quiet hum of muted voices from inside. As she approaches the entrance, a uniformed officer steps forward, blocking her path. "Sorry, Ma'am, this is a crime scene." Clara flashes her ID, her tone curt. "Detective Clara Bennett. I'm expected." The officer hesitates, eyeing her warily. "We've been told to wait for D. Harper to clear anyone through. She's inside." Clara lets out a frustrated sigh, glancing at her watch. "Fine, get her." The officer nods and disappears into the house. Clara stands on the stoop, the rain dripping from the brim of her hat. She looks up at the towering structure, its Gothic architecture seeming to breathe with the storm. Her thoughts swirl as she wonders what she's about to walk into. Moments later, Ellie Harper emerges, her face tight with focus. "Clara," she says, motioning her inside. "Thanks for coming." "Did I have a choice?" Clara quips, stepping past the threshold and shaking off the rain. "Tell me about the victim." As they move through the narrow hallway, Ellie begins. Arthur Winslow, 62, a rare book dealer. Lived alone, but his shop is well known among collectors. The house is strange, though. Feels like it's stuck in another century. Clara glances around, taking in the heavy velvet curtains, the antique furniture, the faint smell of old paper and wood polish. "You're right. It's like stepping into a Victorian novel." Ellie nods. "He was found in the sitting room, the Queen of Spades in his hand, and that scrap of paper nearby. Latin, something about shadows. And then there's the witness." "The artist," Clara interrupts. "What's his story?" "Name's Leo Morgan, 25. Lives in the studio across the street. Says he was sketching the townhouse when he saw someone bolt out the side door. Claims he heard the words, 'The raven sends his regards.' Clara's jaw tightens. Convenient timing. Ellie leads her into the sitting room where the atmosphere shifts. The air is heavy, the silence oppressive. The body of Arthur Winslow lies sprawled on an ornate Persian rug, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The playing card is still clutched in his hand, its edges stained with blood. Clara's gaze sweeps the room, noting the faint trail of blood leading toward the kitchen, the overturned chair near the desk, the faint imprint of a missing book on a dusty shelf. "And the footprints?" Clara asks, crouching near the body. Ellie points toward the side door. 2 sets, one heavy, one light. The lighter set, smaller, like a woman's. They're fresh. Clara's eyes narrow. A playing card, Latin, and now footprints. Someone's leaving a trail. Or sending a message, Ellie counters. Clara stands, her mind already piecing together the threads. Let's see the witness. Maybe he knows more than he's letting on. Clara and Ellie enter a small, dimly lit room where Leo Morgan sits nervously. He's a wiry young man with paint-stained hands and dark circles under his eyes. A sketch pad lies on the table in front of him, open to a rough drawing of the townhouse. Clara pulls out a chair and sits across from him, her gaze sharp and unyielding. Ellie leans against the wall, arms crossed, her presence less intimidating but no less observant. "Leo Morgan," Clara begins, her voice low and steady. "You were sketching the townhouse when you saw someone leave. Walk me through it." Leo swallows hard, his fingers fidgeting with the edge of the sketch pad. "I was working on a piece for an exhibition. The house caught my eye. The angles, the shadows, I didn't mean to see anything. But you did." Clara presses. "What did you see?" Leo takes a shaky breath. "It was late. I heard a noise like a door slamming. I looked up and saw someone running. They were dressed in dark clothes, a hood pulled up. Couldn't see their face." "And the words?" Ellie interjects, her tone gentler. "What exactly did you hear?" Leo hesitates, his eyes darting between the two women. I think they said, 'The raven sends his regards,' but it was faint, like a whisper carried on the wind." Clara's expression doesn't change, but Ellie notices the slight tension in her jaw. "You're sure about the words?" Clara asks. Leo nods. "Yes, it felt deliberate, like they wanted me to hear it." Clara leans back, her gaze never leaving Leo. "Did you notice anything else? Footsteps, a car, anything unusual?" "There was a scent," Leo says suddenly, his voice tinged with fear. "Like burnt wood, and they dropped something near the door, a feather, black." Ellie exchanges a glance with Clara. Clara's voice softens, almost imperceptibly. "You've been helpful, Leo. Stay available. We might need more from you." As they leave the room, Ellie turns to Clara. "The raven, a feather, Latin. This isn't just a murder, is it?" Clara's lips press into a thin line. "Number, it's a message, and I think it's meant for me." Clara returns to the sitting room, her eyes drawn to the scrap of paper that had been carefully bagged by forensics. The Latin phrase reads, "Umbra veniet," shadows will come. As she stares at the words, her thoughts drift back to a memory, a man's voice, gravelly and cold, uttering those very words in a dimly lit alley years ago. Ellie notices Clara's distant look. "Something on your mind?" Clara shakes her head, tucking the memory away. "Just thinking about what shadows might mean in this context. It's poetic or ominous." Ellie frowns. "Do you think this could be linked to your past?" Clara doesn't answer. Instead, she turns her attention to the bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines. One book is missing, its dusty imprint the only sign it existed. Whoever did this took something. A book. It must have been important. Ellie nods. "Let's find out what it was." Clara's phone buzzes again. She glances at the screen, a number she doesn't recognize. When she answers, the voice on the other end is distorted, mechanical. "Detective Bennett," it says. "The shadows are watching." The line goes dead. Clara stares at the phone, her heart pounding. Ellie notices her reaction. "Clara? What is it?" Clara slips the phone back into her pocket, her voice steady despite the unease gripping her. "Nothing. Just another piece of the puzzle." As Clara leaves the crime scene, the rain has eased to a drizzle and the streets glisten under the dim glow of streetlights. She decides to walk back to her office, her thoughts swirling with the night's events. Just as she nears the police station, a figure steps out of the shadows. "Detective Bennett," a deep voice greets her. Clara instinctively reaches for her coat pocket where her hand rests on her phone. "Who's asking?" The man steps closer, revealing a rugged face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. His coat is long, dark and damp from the rain. "Name's Jack," he says, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "We have a mutual interest." "Do we?" Clara replies, her voice cool. "And what interest might that be?" Jack smiles faintly, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "The Raven." Clara's pulse quickens, but her expression remains unreadable. "And what do you know about the Raven?" Jack leans slightly closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Enough to know you're in deep. But I can help, if you're willing to listen." Clara studies him for a long moment before stepping back. "I don't take help from strangers." Jack shrugs, pulling a card from his pocket and handing it to her. It's blank, save for a single black feather embossed in the center. "When you change your mind, you'll know where to find me." Before she can respond, Jack disappears into the night, leaving Clara standing in the glow of the street lamp. She stares at the card, her grip tightening. The Raven's shadow looms larger than she anticipated, and now another player has entered the game.